Hello, yeah, welcome back to my channel. I want to use this opportunity to thank all my subscribers and my viewers. I want to say thank you so much. I appreciate the effort and the love. If you are new here, if this is the first time chancing upon my video, I say welcome to be a part of the family. Welcome to be here. Yeah. So today we are going to be looking at the part two of the data cleaning in Power BI using Power Query series. I've already done a part one of it as a mini project. You can find that in my videos, and this is going to be the part two. So this is going to be precise, short, and a little straight to the point. But then before I even delve into, I just want to say this is something that I come or I chance upon almost every single day in my work as a data analyst. Like I said, with data analytics, data cleaning, and transformation is the most important and is the most time consuming. And so a lot of the times you are going to come across one or two of these problems, and it's important to know how to go about them. All right. And so this is why I'm making this series and I'm taking my time to do them. And so yeah, let's jump right into. Oh, and before I forget, I realized that with some of my videos, they appear blur when you are watching them, and that is fine. So I decided to make a little video to show you how to go about it. So yes, so you can see here once you open your YouTube, then you search for any of my channels. So Sharp Mastering Data Cleaning. So this is a part one of the video that we are about making. All right. Excuse me. So once you click on it, a lot of the time or sometimes you realize that it's a little blur. And so you can just come down to the settings, go to quality, and then choose the highest quality, 720 or 1080 resolution, and then that's going to fix that. All right. Okay. So now let's jump right into why we are here today. I've already gone through how to import data from files to Power BI. All right, and so you can check that out if you have the time. So yeah, I've already gone through. I know my data set is in Excel. All right, so this is the data set we are working with today, salary of records data set. So YouTube, and so we are importing it. It's an Excel file, so we are importing it into Power BI, and I've already talked about all of this, and I've gone through it. So you can check out that video somewhere. Go to leave it somewhere. Okay. So yes. So this important. So transform. We will go to transform data. All right. I've already spoken about all this in previous videos. So yeah. So this is the data set. All right. This is the data set. Now in Excel, this is exactly how it appears to be. So let's say in Microsoft Excel, if you are to open the data in Microsoft, this is how it appears to be. All right, so this is the data set. And like I said, this is something a lot of the time you're going to come across. Your data set is going to look something like this. And I think this is even to some extent better. Sometimes it could look way too messier than what we have here. All right, but this is going to help us to know how to deal with yeah, the majority of the problems that we might be facing, when we are cleaning our data. All right, so I took the time to compile this data set and get it for this session. Okay, so that's the data set that we've imported into Power BI, Power Query in Power BI. All right, and like in previous videos, as I said, once I import my data, the first thing that I do is I go through each column. All right, I go through each column. I've already established the fact that data cleaning is the most tedious of data analytics and is the most time consuming. And so this at the back of our minds should help us and should keep us under at ease, knowing that we need to take our time and do this properly. Now, why is it important? Because if you're unable to clean our data properly, it's going to affect our analysis. And so it's essential, it's really important that we spend most of our time, we take our time, and then we go through the data set to understand the data set and to transform it in a way that will be beneficial, or that will put us at an advantage when we are performing our analysis at the end of the day. Do you understand? All right. And so what I do is, like I said, I look at each column. I take each column one by one, and then I study the column, and I know what I need to do in each column, and then I do them as I proceed. Do you understand? All right. And so that's what we are going to do. Like I said, this video is going to be straight to the point, and is gonna be, yeah. All right. And so this is the data set. This is what we have. Now let's look at the first column. What can we see? Again, don't forget, I've already spoken about the view. All right. So these things that we are seeing here, the valid error. So this is telling us that there's an 88% validity that this column is okay. However, there's also a 12% of this column that is empty, and so we need to work on it. Okay, and we can see all this because we have the column quality turned on. Now if we turn the column quality off, we see nothing. All right, we see nothing. And so if you want to see how your columns are performing, or how your columns are, you need to turn this then right on. Okay. All right, so now let's take our columns one after the other and then know what we are dealing with. So looking at this column, one thing we can see is that they are null values. These are null values, so they are null values in our column. That's the first thing. Now what else can we see in this column? Now another thing that I can see is that the header has column 1. However, looking at this column and looking at this particular row, this first row is supposed to be our header. All right, the first row is supposed to be our header and not this column 1, column 2. And so we need to change this so that this first row becomes our headers. Do you understand? All right, and that the null values are removed. Now aside this, I mentioned in my previous video that if the items in a particular column are numbers and numerical, we need to change the data types into that to reflect the particular column. But in this case, we see that the numbers over here, the items over here are numbers, but the data type is showing text. All right, and so in the first instance, we need to change this to whole numbers. Do we understand? All right, so these are the three things that we've seen with this column: null values, header, and then data types. That's what we've seen. There's something that I'd like to draw attention to before we proceed. Whenever you see null values, it's essential that you don't just rush into removing the null values. That would be terrible. That would be a very big mistake. All right. Whenever there are null values, what is most advised is that you look at the rows to ensure that the null values is the same across that particular row. It is then and only then that you are allowed to remove the null values from your data set. Now, if the null value occurs in this particular column, but then a value appears on that same row but in a different column, you don't just remove null value, because removing this null value is going to affect the entire row. And so if there are values here, assuming there's a value here, column 6, I have something like another finance or accounting, and then in this particular column here I have a name or something. If I remove this, I remove the null value from this column, it's going to affect all of this, and that might affect our data set. All right, and so you don't just go ahead and remove null values. Please, let's keep that in mind. Okay, you don't just go ahead and remove null values. And so what we can do is that to check whether the entire row is okay to remove, we come here. So this helps us to filter. So this is like the filter. If you are familiar with Excel, this is like filter. And so we come here and then we filter. So I filter only the null values to see if I can take it out. All right, okay. and then I can just do that. So I can just remove empty because I've already gone through and I know the null values are empty. All right, I know the null value. I can just remove the null values. But then in your case, you can go through, you click the null values, and then you are able to check the entire row to see if the whole row is empty as well. Then you can go ahead and remove empty, okay, or remove the null values. Do you understand? Or you can select all of this, but then you leave the null unchecked, and so that will also work. All right. Okay. If there are any questions, can leave it down below. If you didn't understand something, I'll probably look at it. All right. And so now we are done with the first one, which is removing the null values. And so now we are set to go. Now, the next thing that we need to do is that we need to replace these columns with these headers, because these are supposed to be the headers and not these. These are supposed to be the headers, and this is something that I've come across a number of times in this my data analytics journey. And I can tell you that you are definitely going to come across something like this. But then when you come across something like this, you don't panic. You just study the data set and you follow just what I'm about to show you. All right. And so once you see something like this, where the headers are supposed to be here, however, is being, complicated, what we do is that we come to we go to home, and then I've said this before, you use what? You use first row as the headers, because we want to use this first row, the items in this first row, as the headers. And so we come here, we go to home, come to use first row as headers, and then we click on this. And so what it's going to do is that it's going to replace, the headers are going to replace by the items that were in the first row. All right, so now let's proceed. So even doing this, the now Power BI or Power Query is able to read and see that, okay, now that the ID is here, the data type is actually supposed to change. The data type is supposed to be numbers and not text. Remember that before it was text, but now that the row, the headers have been placed in their right places, it's affected the entire column. In some situations, it wouldn't affect them automatically, so you have to change them as well. And so if that is the case, if it doesn't affect it or it doesn't change it, you just come to data types, then you change it to whole numbers, and that is fine. And then this is date. All right. So remember that before we changed everything as the headers. This is how the date is supposed to be like. All right, so it automatically worked it out, but this is how it's supposed to be even after we have used the first row as headers. This is how our data set is supposed to be. And so once we see this, so some people will be lucky to just update the whole column, some wouldn't be lucky. And so if you are not lucky and after using the first row as headers, you still see your data sets like this, you don't have to panic. All you have to do is, like I said, you change your data types. So this is still in text, so we change it to whole number. All right, so now this is done. And then now you come here. Now date is the most cumbersome column of all in data analytics in my experience. Now this is even better. This format is better. It could be way worse, where in some situations you have to even separate the years, the months and days, do your cleaning, and then merge them again together. So sometimes the date column can be very hectic. But in this situation, we have some appearing as numbers, some appearing as text, but we know that this is supposed to be date. And so what we can do is that we can again come here to our data types and change the column to date, and that's going to fix it for us. All right, so when you see something like that as well, you don't panic, you just stay calm. Okay, now this column and this column, what can we see? Now there are two things that I can see here, or three maybe. Now the first thing that I see is that this first name and last name, we should be able to measure them as one. Okay, this is Emmanuel, this is Azaglo, this is Daisy, Daku, Kinata, Kofi, Sabana, and so on and so forth. For to help in our analysis and to make our analysis, easier to understand and simple, a lot of the times it's better to just merge the dates. So it's merge the names, and this does not only apply with or to names. Sometimes it applies to geography. So Like you have a country, you have city, you have state, and you realize that you can just merge them together. Then you can just put all of them together in one column rather than having them separated. That makes the whole thing plenty. So you can just merge them as one, so that you have, instead of first name and last name, you have full name. Do you understand? So you have Henry Amusa, you have Oscar Selassie as one. Do you understand? You have Kizia Kakwa as one, things like that. That makes it easier for anyone that takes the data set. Do you understand? And so we'll be merging these two columns. And then another thing that we need to keep in mind is the fact that when you look at how the items are in the column, take something like this, Oscar Selassie. Now, this has spaces before the item. All right, and so we have something, there's something that we call to trim. We have trim. Now what trim does is that it removes any space before or after an item in a cell. Okay, so if there are spaces like this, if there are spaces before the item or the spaces after the item, that's going to affect our analysis. And so what we can do is that we just use a trim to remove the spaces. So any unnecessary space that we find in a particular column, we can just use the trim. All right, you can just use the trim. Use something called trim. It's a function, and the trim will trim all of those spaces out of that particular cell. Okay, and another thing that we need to also keep in mind is the fact that these names are spelled anyhow. So this Emmanuel has EMM being capital, and then ANUL being small letters. It doesn't make sense. It makes the whole data very messy. Look at this. These are all small letters, and then these are all capital letters, and then this has unnecessary spaces, small letters. Some have small and capital letters mixed together. All right, and so what we can do is that we need to make them proper. Okay, we need to make them you can either make all of them capital letters, or you can make all of them small letters. All right, or you can capitalize the first letter of each word, and that's what I normally prefer, to capitalize the first letter of each word. All right, and so for this particular mandate and this particular column, that's what we are going to be doing. We are going to be capitalizing each word, each letter in each word. We are going to capitalize the first letter in each word, excuse me, and then we are going to merge them as one, so that we can call them full. We can call it the column name full name instead of the first name and then the last name. All right, so how are we going to go about it? So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to first select this row, or this column, excuse me. So I'm going to select this column, hold control, and then select this column, so that I'm able to select both column at once and then work on them simultaneously. All right, so you select the first row, the first column, excuse me. Select the first column, hold down the control key, and then you select the second column as well. All right, so once we have this, you right click, and then you are going to get this drop down box. Okay, and so like I said, the first thing that we want to do is we want to merge the columns. All right, so we want to merge the columns. So we come to merge columns, click on merge columns, and then we are going to have a pop-up. Yeah, we are going to have this, and this says choose how to merge the selected columns. What separator are we going to use? So for a name like Henry Amusa, are we going to use Henry Amusa, Henry Amusa, or Henry space Amusa? That's just what this is asking. All right, and so what I'm going to use, I'm going to use a space. Okay, and so I'm going to click on custom, or I can just simply click on space, but just to show you that there are more options, click on custom, and you can use whichever one you want. And I'm going to click space. All right, and then I'm going to call my new column name when I merge the two columns, the new name that I'm going to call it. So I'm going to call it full name. All right, and then once I'm done, I'm just going to click on OK, and that's it. So that's why now we have Emmanuel Azaglu Daisik Dakon. So I've merged the two columns as full name. So now once I have this, now we need to make, like we said, we want to make the first word capital, and then we want to capitalize the first word in the column. Okay, and so we go back again, we right click, and then we'll come down to transform. All right, so when you come to transform, you have the option to either change all of them to lowercase, so we can change all of them to lowercase and you see it's affected them, or we can change all of them, excuse me, we can change all of them to uppercase and we can see that. All right, so in our case we are going to transform them by capitalizing each word. So this, all right, data cleaning, so that makes it beautiful. All right, now don't forget that there are some spaces, and I said with the spaces what we do is that we use what we call the trim. All right, so now that we've capitalized each word, we've merged them, what do? We need to remove the spacing, and again we go to transform, and then we go to, this is a trim, we trim it. And now the trim is going to remove. So before, Oscar Selassie had space before Oscar Selassie, and so but then after this, after we transformed and we use the trim, we realize that now that space has been removed, and that's the beauty of the trim, and then the transform function in here. All right, and we come to age and realize that age is perfectly fine, so we can just change this and then use whole number. And then department, now another thing to also look out for is a department. Now let's see, so look at this, you realize that account and accounts are one and the same. Admin and admin, they are one and the same. However, the spelling for this admin is different from the spelling for this admin. And so what this is doing is that it's seeing them as different, whereas they are one in the same department. Do you understand? And so we need to either format this to be like this or format this to be like this, so that we have admin. And we can also format this to be like this or this to be like this, so we can have just accounts or accounts. And then when you come down to look at finance and the spellings, and this as capital, this as small, so we need to transform all of this so that we can just have one unique item in this particular column. So finance, 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 we just have to have one finance representing all finance. Account, accounts, just to have one account representing this account and this account. All right, and so that's what we do. So how do we go about it? We go about by using what we call replace values. All right, and so let's take for instance this account and account. Now we want to make this one, so we want to say, okay, so if this account is the same as this account, but then they have different spellings, why don't we just make both of them account? All right, and so how do we go about that? So I come here and I right click again, and I come to replace values. All right, replace values. So I click on replace values, and then what do? I say accounts, value to find is accounts, and I'm replacing it with what? Account. And then I'm going to click on OK. And what is that going to do? Now this is going to change, or this is going to convert the accounts that I had to what account. Now let's do another one. So this is admin, but this has a capital letter, this has a small letter. And so I want to change this small letter to this capital letter and then have admin as one, but start with capital letter. All right, so we have one unique value for admin. And so again, we come to replace values, and I'm going to say, which value are we finding? We are finding this admin. And what are we replacing it with? We are replacing it with this admin. Okay, and so when we come here like so, we realize that now it's merged as well. So we have again administration. So let me see, I want to change, I need to make the administration also admin, so that we have admin for all. And so replace value, and then I say administration. That's the value I'm looking for, and I want to change it to what? Admin. And voila, we have it here. All right, and so yes, this marks the end of today's session. Think salary shouldn't be anything difficult. We can just make it this or whole numbers, depending on what we want to do. and then the geography is also really okay by me. I've gone through, and so yes, thank you for staying with me. And again, I appreciate you being here. I hope you learned a lot from today's lesson, and I hope you will try and then keep up. Our next session, we are going to be talking about DAX measures and then calculated columns. And I hope to see you there. See you, and we will live to meet again. Bye bye.